What is a relational database? A relational database is a database with multiple tables in it. A table in a relational database may be linked to other tables, and also a table in a relational database is called a relation. So tables in a relational database that are linked to other tables, this relationship can be understood logically also. For example, consider the scenario of a hospital, right? Consider the scenario of a hospital. Uh, in a hospital, patients are treated by doctors. Now, there is a logical relationship, right? Patients are treated by doctors. When we create a database for this scenario, we are going to create a we're going to create a table for patients, right? So we're going to create a table for patients, right? And let's just call it patient. The table is called patient, and we're also going to create a table for doctors, right? We're also going to create a table for a doctor, right? We know that these tables are logically linked together, but how do we link them in a database? To link them in a database, we use the concept of a foreign key. Okay, let's take let me quickly write down these tables. So the patient, let me just define these tables. So the patient table has patient ID, the first name and the last name and the contact, right? So these are the different fields that can be found in the patient table, and we're just trying to keep it simple here, right? So we've just included a few fields here, and we know that the patient ID is the primary key. We've shown it as the primary key by underlining the patient ID. Likewise, the doctor table includes the doctor ID, his first name, his last name, and his specialty, whether he's a cardiologist, a pediatrician, or what field he specializes in, right? And in the doctor table, the doctor ID is the primary key, and we've shown that by underlining the doctor ID. So now that we have these two tables in our database, how can we link them together? You see, to link the doctor table to the patient table, we will take the primary key of the doctor table, that is the doctor ID, and we are going to add it to the patient's table. So let me just scroll up a little bit. So here's what we are going to do. We are going to modify the patient table, right? We're going to modify the patient table. We're going to have all the fields that were already there, the patient ID, right? The first name, the last name, the contact, and finally we are going to add the primary key of the doctor table in this table, right? So we're going to add doctor ID to the patient table. Remember, doctor ID was the primary key in the in the doctor table, and now it has been added to the patient table, right? And here this key is acting as the foreign key. So the foreign key, that is the doctor ID, is being used to establish a link between the patient and the doctor table in this scenario. By basic definition, a foreign key is used to create relations or links between different tables in a relational database. And a foreign key in one table is basically a primary key in some other table. Now that we've understood the role of the foreign key, let us take a look at the entity relationship diagram. First of all, what is an entity? An entity is any object, person or thing whose information you want to store in a database. in case of the hospital, we had decided that the database needed to store information about a patient. So a patient is an entity, and I'm going to show a patient by drawing a rectangle, right? Also, in this hospital scenario, we had decided that it was necessary to save information about a doctor. So a doctor is also an entity, and once again I'm going to draw a rectangle to show doctor as an entity. Now that we've drawn our two entities, we can show a link between them by using a line. So this is basically our entity relationship diagram. We can now add more information to this diagram that explains the nature of the relationship between these two entities, that is the doctor and the patient. For example, looking forward from the patient to the doctor. So looking forward from the patient to the doctor, we can define the logical relationship of one patient to the doctor as follows. We can define the logical relationship of one patient to the doctor as follows. We can say that one patient can be treated by one or more doctors. Basically, we are saying that a patient can be treated by many doctors. The many part of the relationship can also be shown on the diagram. So because what we are saying is that one patient can be treated by many doctors. So on this side we can show the many sign, and this is the many sign, right? On the diagram we can draw the many sign to indicate the relation when we are looking forwards, when we are looking from the patient to the doctor. Okay, now that we have defined the forward relationship, we need to define the backwards relationship also, looking from the doctor's side to the patient, right? So we need to define the backwards relationship also. So we are going to define the backwards relationship for one doctor, the logical backward relationship for one doctor. In words, we can write this down as a doctor, or we can say one doctor, right? We always define it for one doctor, one patient, right? So one doctor can treat one or more patients. So this is what we are saying, that one doctor can treat one or more patients, which means one doctor can treat many patients, right? And once again, the many part can be indicated on the diagram using this symbol, right? Okay, now that we've defined the forward relationship and the backward relationship, we can just get rid of these arrows that we have here. Let me just quickly erase these arrows. We don't need them anymore. Okay, so now when we take a look at this diagram, we can say that the relationship between the patient to doctor is a many to many relationship. It is a many to many relationship. Note, there is a many here and there is a many here also. That's why we have said that the relationship between these two entities is a many to many relationship. Okay, let's quickly do some other ER diagrams for some other logical relationships. What if, for example, we had the following logical relationships? One patient can only be treated by one doctor, and one doctor can treat many patients. So let me quickly draw our entities. So we have the patient, and the doctor, right? And it says that and these are linked, right? So one patient can only be treated by one doctor. So looking forwards, one patient can only be treated by one doctor. So we don't really need to show anything here, right? On the diagram, no symbol, you know. For one, we don't actually need to draw any symbol, right? And so we've defined the forward relationship. We don't need to mark anything on the diagram, but let's take a look at the backward relationship. So one doctor can treat many patients. Looking this way, one doctor can treat many patients, right? So this many part needs to be drawn here, right, on this side, and that's our diagram. So we are going to ignore the arrows here, and let's see how can we define this diagram now. There is a many to one relationship in this entity relationship diagram, or so basically we're looking this way, right, and we are saying there is a many to one relationship in this ER diagram. Okay, let's go to let's take a look at scenario number 3. Okay, scenario number 3 has the following logical relationships. One patient can be treated by many doctors, and one doctor can only treat one patient. One doctor can only treat one patient. I know it sounds very illogical, but just for the sake of drawing an entity relationship diagram for this, we'll consider that one doctor can treat only one patient. Okay, let me quickly draw our entities. So we're going to have a patient, and we're going to have the doctor. So, and these are linked. Looking forward, right, one patient can be treated by many doctors. So one patient can be treated by many doctors. This many part needs to be drawn here. And looking backwards, right, one doctor can treat only one patient, right? So one doctor can only treat one patient. So for this, we don't really need to show anything on the diagram. So we're going to ignore these now that we're done with them, and we're going to describe this relationship as what? We always read left to right. So reading left to right, we're going to say what? We're going to say there is a one to many relationship, right? For this diagram, there is a one to many relationship between the patient and the doctor, right?